Hello there. Let's talk today about semicolons because in my career, I have been asked about semicolons more than almost any other subject. They can be a little confusing, but I am here to make this clear and easy for you. So let's take a look at a semicolon, a period on top, or so it looks, with a colon underneath. It looks a little bit like a colon, which is one dot above the other, and the name sounds like colon. And therefore, it's easy to think, well, colons and semicolons must have similar rules, and that's the source of confusion. But really, the appearance and the name are where the similarity ends. So we'll clarify that first. So the other thing that is confusing about semicolons, their rules can be hard to remember because you don't encounter them very often. But there's actually a good reason for that. There are only two and exactly two situations in which you're going to use a semicolon. That's why you don't see them very often. But the advantage with only two rules, they're easy to remember. So let's go on ahead and look at them. Okay, so number one, you want to use a semicolon to connect two independent clauses or complete sentences. If you need a review of what an independent clause is, I will direct you to the fundamentals publications in Nightingale Writing Center. Let's look at some examples here. I am famished. I must eat now. A familiar feeling. So what do we have here? We have two independent clauses. One of the tests of an independent clause is that it can stand as a complete sentence unto itself. I am famished. Makes perfect sense as a complete sentence. I must eat now. Again, makes perfect sense as a complete sentence. But this writer, me to be honest, has chosen to merge these into a single sentence with the semicolon. So what are the motivations here? We'll see in a second. Here, we have a more complicated sentence that's using the same principles. Let me explain. Complete sentence. Although I finished the pie, I did not like it. So here in the second part, we actually have a dependent clause, although I finished the pie, and an independent clause. I did not like it. That's why I've been saying it's to merge two independent clauses or two complete sentences. All right, what's going on here? Well, the two independent clauses or complete sentences must have a close logical relationship, usually a causal relationship, to justify linking them with a semicolon. If there's not a close relationship, go for a period. Another rule of thumb is that at least one side of the semicolon, one clause or sentence, should be short. How short? That's a judgment call. It's more an issue that if you're trying to merge two longer sentences with a semicolon, it's going to be very hard for the reader to keep track of what's going on in the sentence. All right, so that's our first situation for semicolons. You're wanting to demonstrate a very close logical or causal relationship between two independent clauses and one or both of the independent clauses or sentences is pretty short. That's one situation. Let's check out the other. You'll use a semicolon in a list of 3 or more items when at least one of the items uses a comma. All right, let's put this in action by first seeing a simpler sentence that does not use a semicolon. Bill wore a coat, a hat, and boots. All right, we have a list of 3 items, a coat, a hat, and boots. We have a comma after coat and a comma after hat. This is following the rules for commas in lists according to APA. So a coat does not have a comma unto itself, nor does a hat, nor does boots. Let's change this up. Bill wore a stained, rumpled coat, a hat, and boots. Now, one of our items has a comma, a stained comma, rumpled coat. Now, if we use commas after each of these items instead of semicolons, it's going to be very hard for the reader to keep track of how many things there are in the list. It could look like a stained, rumpled coat, a hat, and boots. That's what it would look like at first glance if we used commas here. So we use semicolons to make it clear that this comma between stained and rumpled, it's doing its own thing and is not a separator for the list. It's a pretty unusual situation. And it's the only other time that you're going to use a semicolon. Okay, that's it. 2 simple rules, easy to remember, and they're not going to happen very often. Okay, that is all that I have. Remember, if you have any other questions or concerns, always feel free to reach out to us at Nightingale Writing Center. All right, take care for now.